Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Rhyme of the Times for the weekend in 16th of May 2026. After the big election hit, Labour are split over whether their leader is the right fit and should stick with it. Keir himself shows grit, as it seems defeat is something he will not admit. But the touch paper is lit for Wes and Andy to go for it. The remaining Brits can finally quit the ship that was virus hit. Trump and X's summit underwhelms a little bit. Europe thinks the Brit ditty is shit. On the good ship Hondius, on April the 12th, the captain broke the news about a matter of health. A passenger had died and reliable sources were certain the death was due to natural causes. The cruise ship continued on its merry way, during which time 2 more punters passed away, and it turned out unnatural causes were to blame. It was the hantavirus, deadly and his strain. Found in rodents, but between humans it can spread. This was a scenario to fill anyone with dread. Stuck on a ship with 28 different nationalities, around 200 in total and 3 fatalities. Trapped on a cruise ship with terra firma out of bounds, with a deadly virus floating all around. Quarantining cabins, praying for a lifeline, not quite the dream cruise voyage of a lifetime. At St. Helena and Cape Verde, the ship stopped off, where the very unwell could be dropped off. And on Sunday, the 6-week boat ride of grief finally terminated in the port of Tenerife. Those on board could return to their own home nation to face a period of self-isolation. Over the weekend it had been like a fishing expedition, as the media baited Labour politicians and debated whether the local elections last Thursday had in fact been Keir Starmer's worst of worst days. With public patience snapping, we all knew it would happen, but for Starmer it must have been so morale sapping. The hate that he's now getting is bordering on feral, leaving him and his party in a state of peril. As Keir's career careered out of control, his would-be challengers were on a roll. Throughout the weekend their case strengthened as a list of those wanting Starmer out lengthened. On Sunday, out of the blue, a stalking horse to try to get a leadership contest forced. Catherine West said she'd put her own head on the block in order to unblock the current deadlock. For the whole week in the Westminster world, rumours and febrility everywhere swirled. The Prime Minister tried again to reset with a speech to his MPs to defuse the threat, but several of his cabinet were getting the jitters. 4 junior ministers chose to be quitters. But it was the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, whom from his loud bleating most people were treating as the front runner for Sir Keir's unseating. On Wednesday at number 10, Streeting's meeting with the PM ended up fairly fleeting, barely time to share a greeting or try out the seating. So Wes resigned and the leadership race had begun. Right now, though, there's been no official starting gun. The questions, as they stand, are who wants to run and how will Labour select their chosen one. Well, 6 a.m. Thursday morning, a headline appeared. Angela Rayner's tax issued had finally been cleared. Barely was there time to dwell on Angie's prime timing when the bells of fate for Andy Burnham started chiming. A by-election was conjured up in Makerfield. Sir Keir, my friend, how does that make you feel? Josh Simons magically decided to step aside to allow the constituents to once more decide. Simons creating a crater that needs to be filled, a Burnham-shaped hole for his hopes to be fulfilled. Make a field to make a base camp for Andy's final push to reach the political peak and have Keir ambushed. His vision and vows will soon fall from his mouth, and Starmer's job, along with Andy, could both head south. So is this Labour's last great hope being called forth? The odds are shortening on the King of the North. Their saviour, their knight in shining armour, their hero to rescue their party from Starmer. Is the current Manchester Met Mayor the answer, or just another political chancer? Considering the PM had been put through the mincer, on Wednesday he performed quite well in Westminster. After the King's speech he showed some vigour and vim when the opposition leader excoriated him. He calmly observed that in last week's elections both Labour and Conservatives suffered rejection. But the big difference between them to note is the Tories thus far don't seem to have noticed. For Starmer some rope-a-dope to give him hope when Badenoch seemed to have him on the ropes. Sir Keir seemed relaxed, untypically snappy, like the gloves were off, maybe demob happy. On the international front, Trump toured the East. Some respite from the quagmire of Iran at least. From Wednesday to Friday, his Chinese state visit with bridges to mend and deals to elicit had Trump showing a bit of jest but little zest, as he had plenty of stuff to get off his chest. His negotiating skills were put to the test, but Z overall looked pretty unimpressed. When the trip was complete and Trump could beat his retreat, he looked fairly beat and slightly downbeat. On Saturday, once again, we sent a Brit with a song to the Eurovision finals to get it all wrong. What's the point of going to Vienna to record just one single point scored on the final scoreboard? Look Mum No Computer was the name of our guy. He sang Eins Zwei Drei and got hung out to dry. And the nation watched him try and simply asked, why?